This video was brought to you by Embedded System Solution, a company composed of like-minded electrical engineers, computer engineers, and computer scientists, and whose main goal is assisting our engineering customers, non-engineering customers, and technician level customers with their electrical and computer engineering level and technician level needs. Our customers range everywhere from engineering students to university professors, technicians to engineers, junior engineers to senior engineers. Please feel free to visit us at www.embeddedSystemSolution.com. Again, www.embeddedSystemSolution.com, or better yet, email us at support@embeddedSystemSolution.com. And like always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like. Okay, so now we're going to be discussing Linux user account in terms of file system perspective. Let me see. Okay, so let's remove all this stuff. Okay, so as was mentioned previously, in order to fully understand a computer nowadays, you have to have both the software perspective and the hardware perspective. You must, and there's a video that we talked about this a little bit in depth. But yeah, so let me see, let's remove all this. So in terms of the file system perspective, in case you don't know, the file system is what resides in the hard drive. It doesn't reside in the RAM, right? And everything is in the file system, including the operating system. When you boot up, what happens is the operating system gets loaded from the hard drive to the RAM, and also the applications, so when you turn on the computer, RAM basically is empty. There's nothing there. And for that is the bootstrap process. But anyways, so whenever you add a user in Linux, it has something to do, well, it has a lot to do with the file system. So something happens underneath the hood, and it's good to know what is it that happens when you add a user, because again, you're going to need this information whenever you create SSH, whenever you implement SSH. So because you have to have an account, right? And so you have to have an account in the Linux computer that has the SSH server. And whenever you create an account, you have to know what's happening underneath the hood in terms of the file system, because something does happen. So this is an example of the Linux file system. Now, of course, this is just showing a subset of the directories that are actually in the file system. So there's so many levels deep in terms of Linux folders, and so many folders wide. So this is not a complete list of all the directories available in the file system. These are only directories that are somewhat relevant whenever you create a user account, because there is something that there is some modification that gets to it, and it's good to understand what is that's happening when you create an account on the computer that you're SSHing to, correct? So again, so let's get this out of the way. So so there's the expanded view on the mid right. It shows like a small little section, but on the bottom you can see the expanded file system, so a bigger picture of it, right? And so the binary, no surprise, that's where it contains the executables, mainly for booting purposes, so binary bind. So whenever you have let me see, so think of utilities more or less. So again, whenever you have source code, you have a compiler, you compile it, the executable, that's basically what gets loaded there. But they're mainly utilities, right? And also applications that have to do with the booting process, right? So these are just example of, by the way, utilities are applications. So that's where they reside, present working directory. Whenever you're doing the command line, you type in pwd, and that's where the command is at. So if you go into binary and delete it, you no longer have pwd. So anyways, these are the utilities. So it's impossible, like I said, it's impossible for you to draw out the whole file system. So you kind of have to, we're gonna have to crunch it up. We're gonna have to move some stuff just so we can see the big picture, but at the same time, so just pretend they're on the same level. Those utilities that we just moved, pretend they're on the same level. So anyways, so in the users folder, you have the binary and the lib. Now, what is it again? So there's a standard directory. So anytime you install an application in Linux, and in Windows, whenever you install an application, it's in, program files or program files x86. Well, in the case of Linux, whenever you install an application, including Git, it gets installed in the binary and the lib, the user binary and lib. These are applications that are not essential for the day-to-day usage of the computer, but they give extra capabilities, right? And so these are just some of the example of the applications that you install. So Audacity would be there, GIMP would be there, LibreOffice would be there, VLC would be there, and of course Git would be there, right? And so the library are the libraries that are used for the binary. So you're supposed to add the libraries on a separate folder. So anyways, let's just keep going. And so the home directory, that would be, I believe in Windows, that would be users. And so what would be the home directory? So let me see. So every single user, so let's just pretend that there's only one user in this computer, right? And so under the home user, that's where all the files, I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Sorry. So the user, you have the username. So whenever you add a user, so again, we're talking about adding users in a Linux computer. Whenever you add a user, it creates a user account, and at the same token, it creates this folder right here. And so inside of every folder it has downloads, videos, desktop, music, documents. And so every single user, no, wait, let's go back a little bit, right? So those directories are the destination of the applications on the left-hand side, depending on which way you see it, right? But like Audacity, GIMP, LibreOffice, and VLC, whenever they create files, what's on the left are the applications. The applications generate and read files, and the files, the destination, is on the right. And so it would be under the home username, and that's where they get stored, right? So like VLC, it's going to grab the files from videos and music, right? They're theoretically speaking, video should have MP4 and music should have MP3, right? Correct. Desktop should just be for applications, launchers. But so the takeaway here is that especially for network admins, that those folders right there, that's what you back up. You only back up files. So under the downloads, videos, you're only supposed to have files. You're not supposed to have any applications, right? And so let me see. So let's just move this to the side. As you can tell, it's kind of getting crowded now. But anyways, so let's suppose you create another user, right? And so another folder gets created under the home directory, and it has the username, and it also has the downloads, videos, desktop, documents, folders. So every user that you add, Linux file system creates these directories, so that whenever a person there's a sense of privacy in that every application stores this information on the user's respective download, videos, desktop, music, documents folder. And so every user account that you add is going to have these folders, and also it's going to have like username A and username C. It's going to have obviously the username whenever you log in, so it asks you for username and password. That username, the name of that directory, username C and username A, is going to be the same as the username whenever you log in. And so again, the takeaway here is that every single user that you creates these folders, and these folders are the destination for the files of the applications that are on the left. Whenever they generate, that's the destination of it. And so why are we mentioning this? Well, because when you create a user account under Linux, it creates that directory, but sometimes you don't want to create that directory. There's instances where in SSH, you don't necessarily want that. So that's something that should be taken into consideration. And so anyways, just be aware of that whenever you create an account, that's what's going to happen in terms of the file system. So I believe that's it. Well, that just shows that, it's two separate users, because it was getting a little bit cluttered. So hopefully you can tell the separation between user A's directories and user C's. So I believe that's it. Let me see. Yeah. So in terms of the file system perspective, so let's go away. So I don't know if I'm going to repeat this, right? So, okay. So we're done with the file system perspective. Now we're going to revert back to the file perspective, because, we're talking about file system, files. And so we're going to go back to the etc. Password file, the group file, and I forgot at the top of my head the name of the other file. But yeah, so we're going to go back to the file perspective.